Hi everyone, it's Sabine van Diemen from Amsterdam, my own living room. I am sitting here and I'm waiting for my next guest for 21 questions on Zoom because, Corona times. I know this guy since 2016. We've done Impossible together, we've done The Illusionist together, we've done countless gigs together for Luis de Matos, for Jeff Hobson in his theater, and I can't wait to finally do 21 questions with him. I'm waiting for him now. He is the Daredevil, Jonathan Goodwin. Hi everyone and welcome. As you can see, Jonathan Goodwin, the Daredevil, joined us from Las Vegas. That's where you are right now.
It is indeed. Yeah, I'm in sunny Las Vegas. What's the weather like in Amsterdam?
It's pretty good actually. It's not too bad. It's not as good as in Las Vegas, but it hasn't been raining for at least 2 days, so that's really
There you
good.
go.
How is Vegas? It must be a bit strange right now because just to put a timestamp on this, we are in Corona times. That's why I am not with Jonathan in a dressing room, but we are doing this over Zoom. So yeah, tell me, what is Las Vegas like?
Well, to be honest, I haven't really been out very much because we're not supposed to. But maybe a week or so ago, I drove the Strip, and that's very odd. It's a ghost town. There's nobody, no pedestrians at all. All of the casinos are closed, and I don't know. I saw a video a couple of days ago of like a family of geese just walking down the middle of the Strip because they can. It's like the animals
from the mountains.
Yeah. So yeah, it's obviously people think about Vegas like the Strip, and that's sort of all they think of. Vegas is actually a really nice, large suburban city, and so the suburbs, I think, are pretty normal. People hoarding toilet roll and all of the usual things that people are doing all over the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, are you ready for the 21 questions?
I'm ready. Hit me. Can't wait.
Ready. Okay, question number 1. Who is Jonathan Goodwin? Who is your father? Who is your mother?
Okay, I'm Jonathan Goodwin. I am 40. Shut your face. Just turned, and my father is Keith. My mother is Ruth. I have 2 sisters, Jane and Helen, and they all live back in the UK. That's obviously where I'm from, but now I live in America.
Yeah, you decided to take your chances across the pond.
I did. It was a weird time, actually. That was about 2007 that I moved, and I moved I came here not intending that it would be a permanent move. I came and made a series and a special for Discovery Channel in America, and loved it. Loved the sunshine and the lifestyle. In LA initially, I live in Las Vegas now, and it got to the period of time where I'd sort of finished my contract. I really didn't want to go back, so I did whatever I could to stay. I wrote and produced television shows for different companies, and have never, I've been back and done little jobs and little work things, but I've never been back really permanently since 2007.
Do you like the sunshine better than the rain?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a hard choice, is it? To be honest, I mean, here we are. We're quarantined, and which is obviously a horrendous situation. But there are worse places in the world to be quarantined than where I am right now.
For sure.
My first pool day, I have a swimming pool in my backyard, which I'm lucky enough to have, and yesterday was the first pool day. It was nice and warm, so.
I feel for
you. I know it sucks, but I deal with
it. Good. What were you like as a child?
I was creative as a child. I was very sort of imaginative and sort of thoughtful. I wasn't particularly, and this surprises people given what I do, but I wasn't particularly sort of adventurous or brave or physical even when I was a kid. I existed more in my head. I grew up in Wales, which is a sort of very rugby orientated country. That's the national sport. And I hated it, and I invented my own rules for rugby, which were to keep as far away from the ball as I possibly could. Which is so funny because now I couldn't think of anything that would be better. I would enjoy that a lot, but when I was a kid, not so much.
And so when did that change? When did you decide, oh, you know what? I want to do dangerous things.
Well, I went through, I was a performer. I got into magic when I was young, when I was sort of 7 or 8, which again is sort of quite an intellectual sort of obsessive, boy sitting in their bedroom practicing right. Things. And I was kind of into that world. I've always been very curious about the world and how it works mechanically and physically and whatnot. And so I became a performer, and I was lucky enough to start making television shows because I guess I was good at it. And I was in a show with 3 other guys, and we all had to sort of find our niche in order that it was a little bit like a boy band of magic type TV. It was called Monkey Magic on Channel 5 in the UK. And my character was sort of quite dark and stern, which wasn't really me, but I guess I had to find a niche that was a bit different from all of the other guys.
But they made that up for you, or so they told you, Jonathan, you are the dark one, or?
Not really. It was something that evolved. They gave me a name. We all had a little handle, and mine was the Colonel. And so that immediately evoked kind of a level of sort of authority. And, when we did things that were scary, I was kind of the one that wasn't scared. And that is also me, actually. I don't really get scared of things generally. And that's maybe one of the things that I naturally have from of the area that I now occupy. And so that sort of bloomed a little bit. And then actually, one of the things that I've done a lot of is write and create and produce things for other people. And I'm quite outspoken and opinionated about these things, as you well know. And the production company that I was working for made a special with an American escape artist. That wasn't very good. They kind of got the tone of it wrong. They tried to do like a David Blaine style special with escape artistry.
Right.
And I, as a cocky, 22-year-old, emailed the executive producer and told him that I thought the show was bad. But then I gave him my idea for what it should have been. And he said, put your money where your mouth is and film something. And so I did. So really, it came from taking an idea to its logical conclusion. And also because I had that idea, nobody else was going to do it. So it might as well have been me.
Yeah. That's cool, actually. But it's funny because you say you're not brave, but then, it takes guts to just email a producer and go, you know what, I have other ideas for your show. So to that, what would your job have been if you had not said, no, if you weren't I call it magician because, but you are actually, you don't like to be called a magician, right?
No, because it's not really. Obviously, structurally and in its presentation, what I do is, takes a lot from that world. Yeah. But no, I'm a stunt performer, in a theatrical way, which doesn't really exist anymore. But obviously in Houdini's day, that's kind of what he was. He was doing these sort of very grand feats of escape artistry and stunts too. He did a lot of stunts. And so that obviously existed 100 years ago. Now, not so much anymore. And those people are, just sponsored by Red Bull and stuff.
Yeah.
So Yeah, if I wasn't doing that, what would I do? Do you know what? I probably, at some level, I would be a teacher, I think, because I quite like I said, I've always been fascinated in how things work, and then imparting that to other people, I think is really interesting and useful. But I don't know. My dad is very similar to me in that he's sort of a businessman and he has lots of harebrained schemes all the time, and that's really me. I have that part of him.
Right.
So I don't know. It could be anything. I am satisfied when I'm being creative. Really, that's kind of the thing that gets me up in the morning. And so really, it could be any creative job.
Right. Because can I just say that if you want to be a teacher, you have to have patience. You know that, right?
Yeah, I think I would have to be very, very, very selective about my students.
Question number 4. What is your favorite act in the whole wide world?
Like performing act.
Mm-hmm. Like who can you watch over and over again? It doesn't have to be magic, or it can be something else.
It would be a person, and I have this. You know, I immediately go to the people that I have worked with and have watched. You know, because obviously we've been in shows together that have toured, and you know, we've done lots and lots and lots of shows with lots of different people all over the world. And that exists. You know, there are people that you go on tour with that after you've done your act, you'll go to your dressing room and, you know.
Yeah, you're not bothered.
and zone out. And then there are also people that quite often you'll, not necessarily, you know, it's not even necessarily the kind of person that you're going to stand in the wings and watch every night. But you might listen to, you know, we always have a show relay in our dressing room so we can hear. So the question immediately evokes that as people for me. Jeff Hobson, no doubt, he's the best.
Yeah.
And who else do I love?
I thought you were going to say Raymond Crowe.
Yeah, Ray, absolutely wonderful. We'll always watch Ray.
Yeah.
He's a genius. He's such a talented man. I don't know whether you saw recently, he posted a thing. He built a little theatre in his backyard.
Yeah, fully. I saw the video, you mean.
The Laurel and Hardy thing. Just extraordinary.
Yeah.
And he's just so multi-talented. Charlie Fry is another one. He's one of these people.
Yeah.
You know, Charlie Fry has been posting videos
every day. It looks
every day.
Yeah, in his robe.
Yeah, and they're all great.
Yeah,
it's actually really obnoxious that somebody can be that creative and talented.
Yes.
And just create a new 2-minute thing every day.
Yeah, and like this, make it look so effortless. Boom! Here's another video.
Tells you everything you need to know about the guy. It's funny that all of these people are comedians, isn't it? You know, that's the thing that in our line of work is most impressive, I think, a lot of the time is, you know, yes, you can do it. Yes, you might have the skills to be able to pull something off, or the looks, or whatever. But the thing that is the diamond, the thing that is the really rare thing, is can you make me love you while you do it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
And those guys have that in spades.
Yeah, but also they do it within. Can I make you love me in like less than half a minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? That is impressive. I mean, sometimes it takes a bit to get there, but they're just like, hello, and people are immediately engaged. It's obnoxious, like you say. So what is Jonathan Goodwin's hidden talent? Something we don't know about you and you're good at?
Ooh. I've hoarded most of my talents in many different ways. There are not many secret ones. What am I good at? I don't know. What am I good at?
Singing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can sing a little bit.
Crooner?
Yeah, I'm very into the sort of the Great American Songbook sort of stuff. I guess I'm a bit of an old soul, and so yeah, I'm very into like Sinatra and Bing Crosby.
And although I know it's strictly taboo, when you arrive,
Incriminating footage that I'll probably
You dare?
edit into this.
No.
I so will. Okay, we'll continue. Most important moment in your career?
Most important moment.
Yeah.
When I was very young, when I was probably 7, I wrote a letter to a famous magician in England. It's a guy called Ali Bongo. And he called me, he phoned me up rather than respond to me. And that phone conversation was probably one of the most formative things in my life. You know, he gave me a couple of pieces of advice that have basically been the backbone of my whole career. And so that, I think, probably was certainly one of them. One of the things he said to me was, you know, if anybody ever asks you, can you do something, say yes, and then worry about it. Yeah. Which I think is brilliant advice and is very true, because there is nothing that concentrates your mind like the fact that you have to do this thing now. You know, because it's very easy to procrastinate, isn't it? And say, oh, you know, I'd like to do this one day, maybe I'll do that. But once you've said yes, then now you've got to do it. So that
person that can handle that kind of stress, yeah, then it's good advice.
That's true.
Do you have any rituals or superstition before you go on stage? Is there anything you have to do?
No, I'm not a superstitious person at all. I don't believe in any of those things. So.
No, you believe in science.
Yeah, I do. I'm not really sort of into any of that stuff. No, and I don't get nervous. I could be having a conversation with you about what I'm going to have for dinner, and then go and do whatever it is that I'm going to do. And I think that's, for me, that's my superstition, is to sort of just be a bit sort of blasé about it. Because I think if you're relaxed and comfortable and not worried or stressed, then the audience is going to be relaxed and comfortable in your presence. You know, I think an audience likes a safe pair of hands, and so if you feel like you're on there, then they'll be happy to entrust their time to you.
I feel for my poor audience then when I'm on stage. I hope they're not experiencing what I'm experiencing. What is your favorite theater in the world?
That is a really great question. So many fun ones. The Palace was beautiful. I enjoyed that. So, and you saw that show where I was lucky enough to be in a version of the Illusionist production, which was a period piece. Yeah. And it's the only one of those shows that I was in at the beginning. I was in the very first version of that show. And then they took it to Broadway, and I was lucky enough to be in that version of it as well. And it was at the Palace Theatre in New York, which is in Times Square. It's the big one in the middle of Times Square. And that theatre is beautiful and was lovely to play. Like I said, most theatres are very much of a muchness backstage. And usually the ones in big cities like that are actually really small and poky and damp. Backstage, front of house, lovely. Backstage, not a nightmare. And the Palace was no real exception, apart from the fact that that theatre was built by the man who told Houdini to get out and stop doing card tricks and concentrate on escapes. Okay. And he was an agent. His name was Martin Beck, and he built that theatre. And that theatre, in vaudeville times, there was a series of there were circuits, like different tiers of circuits. And so as a performer, you wanted to sort of do the vaudeville circuit, but get to the top circuit, the one that paid the most and played the nicest theatres. And the top circuit in vaudeville, the best theatre on the top circuit was the Palace Theatre in New York. Everybody basically that was as good as you could ever get in your career back before television, and movies existed. And I played that theatre, and I Googled who had been on the bill 100 years previously to the week the weeks that we were there, and it was the Marx Brothers were top of the bill in that theatre 100 years before. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that show is insane. I love that show. It was a great lineup, and the whole period thing was just so romantic.
Yeah, they made a real mistake. It's funny because obviously you want to put on a great show and have a great cast. They sort of made the show that was almost a bit too good, because all of the people in that show, you've got Tommy and Amelie, the clairvoyants, and Charlie Fry and Rick Thomas and Mark and Ginger.
Yeah.
Everybody is so successful and brilliant at what they do that they can almost never get that cast back together.
No.
They certainly couldn't for that show ever, because nobody, they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, find a lineup like that.
Yeah.
What do you do to relax?
What do I do to relax? I like to read. I read quite a lot, and I also like to write. One of my retirement plans is that I'm going to write science fiction, and so I'm constantly sort of thinking up plots and plans and things like that, and putting them in notebooks for a rainy day. And what else? I like occasionally, and I'm really bad, and I should be better at this, but if I'm not doing something productive, if I'm not doing something that I consider that is a useful use of my time, I feel very guilty about it, and I have to struggle with myself to like create some time that is just time for me, that is just enjoyable downtime. I find it very difficult. You're the same. In some ways, I know that you are like constantly thinking about we were obviously speaking earlier, and you said that if in this time period, if you're not being useful, you're just going to go stir crazy, because it's hard, isn't it, to find a balance. I think that's one of the challenges that we all have, is finding that sort of work life, personal life, family, girlfriend, boyfriend time, and making that all balance neatly, I think is a really difficult thing. And so video games, there's a couple of video games that I know, weird, huh? Yeah, I like video games, but only some very specific ones. I was always a massive fan of The Legend of Zelda. And from a kid, and it's about the only video game I've ever really played, because it has sort of levels of like a adventure, sort of exciting elements to it, but also problem solving and puzzles, and that also appeals to me and my brain too. So yeah, a little bit of video games, but I wrestle with it, honestly. I'll sit and play for 20 minutes and I'm like, I should be doing something else.
Yeah, it's good though. I can tell you this because I know this now. So if you take a little bit of downtime for yourself, the amygdala gets a little bit more rest. Therefore, you will be more productive later.
Like that.
You're welcome. What was the first trick you've ever learned? So when you were 8, probably?
Yeah, I can tell you. I can even show you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Get excited, people.
Yeah.
There was my mum and dad ran a business, and they had not really a shop, but they had an office that people went. They sold and rented trailers to people, you know, to pull boats and horses and all that sort of stuff. And there was a guy that came into my mum and dad's shop, and he was this old dude, and he took his thumb off, and then put it back on again, and to me, and he would only ever do it once, every time he came in, and he told me that it hurt him an awful lot to do it. And like, he really sold it in the most beautiful, like, because obviously the bit is that, isn't it? You know, do it as a bit of a comedy thing, and it's sort of a gag, but he actually sold it like it was real, and my mind was like, that was just most incredible thing. And then once I realized later that it was a trick, well, you know, that was a whole can of worms. That was maybe the beginning of everything.
And did he then teach you or taught you how to do it, or did you figure it out?
No, I think I worked it out.
Okay.
And I think I worked it out from just people sort of talking about it maybe a bit too much, that I realized that maybe there was a bit more to it than meets the eye. And who knows, you know, if they hadn't done that, maybe I would still believe that old guy could do it.
I think you would have figured it out by now. Hanging upside down on fire, but that thumb?
Yeah.
What is your favorite type of music?
I like all music. Like, you know, I said to you, I like the Great American Songbook stuff, but I also listen to a lot of classical music too. I find it very relaxing. Usually at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, that's what I'm listening to. And that changes, you know, I go through cycles of listening to specific composers. So right now I'm listening to a lot of Chopin Nocturne.
Piano.
If you have, you know, Apple Music or whatever, you can go on there and just listen to Chopin Nocturnes, and every new song I'm like, oh, yeah, that you know, I know this one. I've heard this a bunch of different places, because he was just so prolific, and they're all beautiful. They're all hits. So if you haven't listened, just dig them out. Yeah.
Do you have a life motto?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess it's on my arm now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you have something on your arm.
Yeah, I do. This is a quote that actually I loved, and I printed in, like, my parents had this old crappy computer with like it was almost like a typewriter font printer, and I remember typing this out, copying it from a book that I found, and I typed it out and put it on my wall, and it was on my wall for years and years and years, and now it's on my arm, so I can show you, I guess. So it's very, very, very small print, which I'm a tattoo newbie, so I don't know.
You turned 40 and you were like, let's go.
Let's do this. Shut up. But it is, I think, extraordinarily small type for I don't think many people have this small type. But I don't know. Can you read that?
So probably. I struggled and fought. I have abstained.
I've done and abstained.
Oh, I have tortured my body and risked my life only for that to have one, what? Plank?
Yeah.
Oh, plank. Sorry. On the stage where they must fall back and cry. Master. Harry Houdini. So say it again, because I read it like some sort of numpty.
So I have struggled and fought. I have done and abstained. I have tortured my body and risked my life only for that. To have one plank on the stage where they all fall back and cry, Master.
Ah, yeah, see? It sounds better when you say it.
Yeah, it's, he was an egomaniac, is the truth. He was a real egomaniac. And that part of him, I don't aim to emulate.
No.
But that as a goal, as something to aspire to, means a lot to me. And so that's why that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's basically what you do.
Yeah, and the reason that I got it isn't because I'm having some sort of midlife crisis. Fuck you very much.
No one was saying that. So your words.
It's as a reminder, as something that's always there that I can hopefully keep me on course, keep me on track.
Yeah, well, I think it's nice, and I also think it suits you.
Well, thank you.
It doesn't look weird on you, a tattoo or anything.
No,
it doesn't look weird.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Where were we? Oh, here. What do you miss the most when you're on tour?
My daughter.
Yeah.
I have a 7 going on 27-year-old daughter who when I'm at home, I have half the time. So obviously, weeks on end that we get to hang out. And, being away and traveling and working, that's hard. It's difficult. I know that everybody's experiencing that right now, being away from their loved ones and having, relationships with people they care about through a camera. But that part of this is something that I'm really used to, because it's sort of, I travel so much that it's sort of a bit of a normal thing. So when I'm on tour, that I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God for FaceTime and all those things nowadays.
Completely.
Let's see. What is your favorite movie? I'm going to go with Star Wars.
You're saying that because I did this stupid Star Wars challenge yesterday.
Yes.
All of the movies back to back and did exercises. It was like a drinking game, but without the drinking. Yes, it was stupid. Yes, we had fun. Shut your face.
That's good. You have to do something in quarantine.
Jaws, I think, is my favorite movie.
Jaws?
Yeah, I love it. I've always loved it. It's such a brilliantly well-crafted thing. And, talk about a movie that changed. It really changed so much. That was the very first blockbuster movie. Mm-hmm. From the point of view of it was the movie that people queued around the block to go and see for the first time. And I don't know, I think people misunderstand it and think about it as just a movie about a really like a fake shark.
Yeah. But
it's not. The performances in that, forget the shark. You actually don't see the shark that much in that movie. It's about, fear of the unknown and community pulling together to solve the problem. There's just so much in it, and the performances and the direction. It's just brilliant. It's such a great movie, and I love it. It is a real dissection of what is scary, and that is, it's the unknown, isn't it? It's the thing you can't see. And the performances are good, and it's funny and very, very real and honest. I really love it. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, well, I think many agree. It's a great movie. What is the stupidest thing you've ever done? So,
how long is
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's entirely subjective, isn't it? I've done a lot of very stupid things. I a lot of people would say being sewn up inside a dead cow was pretty stupid and unpleasant. I don't know. I've been glued to a tree.
Glue?
I mean, you could, yeah, super glued to a tree. You could literally go down everything in my career. Everything I've ever performed is basically a contender for the most stupid. In fact, I made a television special years ago called "The 7 Stupidest Things to Escape From." So
there you go.
Pick your poison.
Are you stupid outside of the job, or are you quite elegant?
I have my moments of stupidity for sure.
You never had anything really dumb happen to you, like on stage, where you tripped or forgot your microphone? Just all of a sudden remembering.
Yeah, I've forgotten my microphone on stage a couple of times. That's happened. This wasn't my fault, but I fell on stage after doing the body burn. Were you there? I don't know whether you were there. So I'm. If you haven't seen the bit, I'm in a straitjacket, hanging upside down, completely on fire, and I have to escape and put myself out. And at the end, once I put myself out, I hang from one arm, mustering up, trying to look like a badass as much as I possibly can. And then I drop to the stage and walk forwards, and there's like CO2 steam coming off of me, and the audience is clapping. And it's a pretty cool moment. I have to say that moment, and audiences tend to really like it. But one of the methods, one of the reasons why I don't die every time is that I have this gel on my face, which is the reason I can do it and still have eyebrows and eyelashes, because the heat is very intense. And some of that gel had got on the stage. And so I'm hanging there looking like a badass, just put myself out in front of 2,000 people, and I let go. And as soon as my feet hit the gel, they just come straight out from under me, and I land straight in my ass. So it was one of those moments where you go from looking like a complete badass to looking like a total bellend in like a second. Yeah. Yeah.
And then that superhero music.
Yeah. Da, 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 da.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't remember if I was there. Probably not, because I would probably still be laughing.
Yeah. And no, but you know what? Not you. Stupid mistakes and silly things that most people would never really notice. Saying, especially when you do so many shows, you say the same thing twice, or whatever. But nothing.
The wrong city.
Yeah, the wrong city. I've done that.
I know.
My favorite thing that happened recently, Sabine, is when we did the last time that we worked together, and we were doing the crossbow act,
yeah.
and
I know what you're gonna say.
And the end of that act, I make a shot where I'm blindfolded, and you're sitting on a stool, and and there's a balloon above your head. I'm really shooting a balloon with a crossbow just inches above your head, and I'm standing on stage, and I can see that the stool is in the wings and it hasn't been set. And rather than go and get the stool, which is about 6 feet away from you, you decided that you were going to do like a power squat for the whole time that I'm aiming this thing, rather than just go and get a chair.
This is my commitment to your act. And it's also not about my stupidest thing I've ever done. Plus, can you imagine how much I trust you? Like, you're shooting blindfolded, a balloon above my head, and instead of sitting sort of steady on a chair, I'm like, you know what, I'll squat for this one.
And it's not a long period of time as well.
And you even went, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
You shamed me on stage.
You're right. I have turned the tables on you there. It isn't about your stupidest thing. I apologize.
Before you put your blindfold on, what are you doing? Thank you. So what kind of effect or act is still on your wish list?
Oh, I've got lots. I've got lots and lots. Things that I would do on stage for sure. I have a new sword swallowing thing. I'm learning sword swallowing at the minute. That's a new thing that I have a quite often. If I'm thinking about something or doing something or want to do a version of something, it's because I don't like it. And sword swallowing for me is sort of kind of the same. You sort of once you've seen somebody swallow a sword, you've sort of seen sword swallowing, haven't you? And I have an idea for a version of that I think is a bit original and might take it up a level or at least in a different direction. So a version of that I'm working on, and then I always have a big wish list of television things. Quite often I'll have television production companies come to me and say, can you do a big stunt? Can you write as a big stunt for this, that and the other? And television is very difficult, and quite often, you know, these things are more expensive than TV people realize. And so it's a very rare day when those things happen, but I have a list, you know. So every time they ask me, can you come up with something, I'll write a new thing, and then I've got a new idea. So I've got quite a lot of those things sitting in my back pocket, ready to go. And at least a few of them I think I'll do at some point.
Cool. So still a lot of stunts to come.
Oh, yeah.
What was the biggest obstacle you faced in your career?
Working with you? No.
Yeah. Next question.
The biggest thing for me was that my career was backwards, in that I started in television, and the character or the way that it worked on television in the TV shows that I made at the beginning was all very real and very lo-fi and not performed, because when you're doing something dangerous, you want it to feel real. The opposite of that, it's not real. It's clearly something that you've done before, and so it isn't as scary or as raw or as impactful as it could be, especially on television. And so the early television stuff that I did was very underperformed, and I had no live version of it, because the idea was created for television.
Yep.
All dangerous stuff just for TV, and so I had no live version of it. And translating that idea that worked on television to stage and making all of those things work in the same way was really hard, and took me several years to kind of slowly find a way to be able to make that work. So that transition was probably the biggest obstacle that I faced in my career so far.
Yeah, because also for television, you can do certain things again and again, especially maybe not so much the stunt, but especially things like script, and if you tremble, you can just do it again. And then when you transition to theater, you had to just do it. Was that difficult?
It was a little bit. It wasn't so much about nailing the script as about nailing the tone. The beginning, me on TV at the very beginning, I would just come out, talk to the camera, and I'd say, "Hi, I'm Jonathan. Today I'm going to be this, and this is what's going to happen, and let's see it. Let's try." And then I do it. And my dad, who was involved in the TV show at the time, after I did whatever I did, he would call me an idiot. And that was kind of the shtick. It was very, very lo-fi. And then I went on stage, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Jonathan, and today I'm going to, put my head in a box of water." And audience, it was uncomfortable, because that thing that we were talking about earlier, where we were talking about Jeff and Ray and those people that can come on stage and immediately you're at your ease. Well, this is literally I was doing the opposite of what those guys were doing. I was just making people feel like this guy is an idiot and doesn't know what he's doing, and that's not what people want when they go.
No,
you know,
they need to trust you a little bit.
they need to trust you, and so it was really hard for me to be able to transition that character into someone that can walk on stage and do those things and be impactful in the same way, but at the same time, you know, this person is a safe pair of hands and is actually going to be entertaining as well.
And did someone help you with that, or did you just figure that out yourself, or did you get some tips from someone who maybe went, Jonathan?
No, I figured it out myself, trial and error, and luckily I got in with the people at the Illusionists early enough that they would allow me the room to kind of breathe and grow in that a bit. Now, I think if you went and did, if I went now and did the act that I did then I would have only have worked for them once, and they would have canned me because it was bad. It was not great. It was awkward and awful. And but it was one of those things where I got up and I did it and I taped it and I watched it back and I was like, oh, okay, I need to shift in this direction.
Yeah. And do you think people that are going to do it the other way around, so from theater to TV, do you think they face like the same sort of problem, that they may be too big?
Yeah, it's true. You know, if you're used to performing on a stage, then performing to a camera is a very, very different medium, because you're right, everything is so big. You have to make everything huge when you're on stage so that the people at the back of the audience, you know, can really feel and be engaged. And there's a great acting masterclass which I watched, and I recommend to anybody actually. Not that, because there's the sort of masterclass videos that
yeah.
But before that, there was like a round table thing with actors, and it's probably, I don't know, 20 years old or more, with Michael Caine. And he's talking about exactly that, about how little you have to be able to do in order to engage an audience on camera. Very, very different to theatre. But the good news now is that everybody has a studio in their pocket, you know, and you can practice. And that it's easier to practice talking and presenting to a camera now than it is the other way around, the way that I had to do it, you know, where I can do the camera thing. Now I've got to find an audience. And also I've got to find an audience. You know, it's one thing when you want to do magic tricks and you're going to do, you know, I don't know, illusions or card tricks or whatever that is that you want to do. But when the thing that you want to do is set yourself on fire, and you want to try that for an audience for the first time,
Yeah.
you kind of got to get it right first time, haven't you?
Yeah.
So that was a real challenge, like making that transition and being, you know, and getting to a position where I could convince somebody that I knew enough about what I was talking about to let me do that. It was difficult, but thankfully it all worked out.
Yeah, well, it really worked out. I mean, how many years have you been on the road, like almost constantly now with your acts? 6?
2016. So 2015, 2016 is actually not that long in the grand scheme of things. That was the time that so it's the end of 2015. I went to Turkey with them, and I did the very first version of the Scorpion Escape on stage, and I did a water tank escape for them, which I've never done since because it was that bad. And then 2016 was when it sort of worked, and I'd like taken that information and reworked it. And so from 2016 to now, yeah, it's I guess 4 years of pretty solid work doing it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you could only bring one tiny bag with magic stuff and you had to do half an hour show, what would you bring?
How big is the bag? I have no idea.
Like a plastic bag that you do groceries with.
I don't know that I've got anything. Have I? What do I do that fits in a bag? I don't know. I guess I could do a version of my Scorpion escape. That would fit in a bag, but that's not half an hour.
It's a very long escape.
Yeah, I don't know that I could do that. I mean, if obviously I thought about it, I could come up with something, but I don't have things. You know, that's the problem. That's the other problem that I've got in my career, is that people seem to want big scale, sort of spectacular danger things from me. And so that's why it's hard for me to go and like do corporates or the things that other people do so regularly, because nobody's going to go, oh, you see that guy that was completely on fire? Let's book him for our after dinner thing. Like, people don't do that because obviously there are a huge number of logistical implications in that, and it's easier to have a comedian or a close-up magician. So that is one of the challenges of my career, is I've carved myself a niche that is quite difficult to do in lots of different environments.
Find really dangerous things that are small.
Yeah, but that's I'll put a scorpion in my mouth. No, there are a few things, but that's not the most easy thing for me to do.
No, you are from the big stuff. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Questions. Do you think that one day it is enough and you don't want to be on stage anymore?
Yeah, I think so. For me, the thing that I love about what I do is not really I enjoy performing and I enjoy, audiences to a certain extent. But the thing that I like is creating a thing and seeing it manifest. And probably the first 20 times that I do it. And then after that, I sort of get a bit bored and I want to start thinking about the next thing. And, what I do is a young man's game. I probably have, realistically, I probably will do it for another few years, maybe 10 years or so. And then I'll do something else. And that doesn't worry me in the slightest, because the performing part of it isn't really the thing that I love. It's coming up with the idea and then making it work. And I'm just as happy to do that and create that for other people as I am for me.
Right.
So
that would be a great follow-up career.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe I'll do something else. Like I said, maybe I'll write novels or teach scuba dive. Who knows? I'm not really worried about it.
You have enough other things that interest you.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's good. And what is the effect in magic that everyone is doing and that you absolutely don't like?
You can probably answer this for me, can you? I think the one thing, and this is probably quite controversial, because this is a very loved piece of magic that I despise, is the floating table. See, you were expecting me to say Sands of India, weren't you? No. No, the Lysander floating table. And I met Lysander, he's a nice guy, but I don't find it deceptive at all. I think it's just not good. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And and everybody does it, it's one of those things where loads of people love it and I just don't get it. I don't understand why that's magic at all. When it lands and it goes, you can clearly see how it's done without exposing it. I don't need to, go watch somebody do it and you'll see how it's done. It's not great.
Do you have, last question,
Yeah, okay, here we go,
Here.
the big one.
Do you have any advice for aspiring magicians or even daredevils that are watching and that are like, oh, I've learned that from Jonathan Goodwin. That's a good tip.
Yeah. I'll give you the same piece of advice that Ali Bongo gave me, the other piece of advice.
Right.
Which is this, that you can do magic with anything. Anything has potential to be turned into a trick. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to be good at magic, you need to know how everything works.
Everything. So
there you go. There's
that's a lifetime sort of job.
It's a lifetime goal. Absolutely.
It's like
you need to know how everything works.
Someone in magic, I won't name any names, but is picking up a new study, and I was asking her, "Oh wow, what are you studying?" And she said, "The internet."
Yeah.
So that's a little bit what you're saying, basically.
Yeah, you have to learn everything because especially if you want to create magic and not just do things that other people do, mm-hmm. You need to know about engineering and scientific principles and chemicals and that's just the beginning of it. You need to, and once you start sort of deconstructing things like that, you can apply pieces of knowledge to different problems. And then when you're trying to think of a method for something, you have all of that to draw on, and there might be 10 ways that you can think of to do that one thing, and it frees you up massively creatively. When you create magic, you have to come at it effect first. There are so many magic tricks. You can always tell when a magic trick is created at first because it doesn't make sense. And there are some good ones, but there's always a level of like, I don't understand it. There are a lot of Jim Steinmeier who is brilliant, and I love him, and he's very, very creative. But a lot of tricks, is it osmosis? The thing with the plank of wood?
Yeah.
Is a perfect example of a trick that's written method first, because you've got a box and a plank, and then somebody goes through a person that's standing up against a plank, and it's a great visual trick. But at the same time, you're like, what was the plank for? Do you know what I mean? It's like he created that because he had a great idea for a visual principle with the method. And I think it's much better that really, really great things come from, okay, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? And you write the narrative structure for what it is. And then once you've got that, then you go, how's that done? And if you've learned and studied and you know how engineering and science and all of the things that, that are out there for us to learn, you know how those work, then you have an arsenal to be able to solve those problems. And that, I think, is the best way around.
Right. Sorry, my dishwasher is beeping out.
But do you know how it works?
Well, you put the dirty dishes in. Well, Jonathan, thank you very much for answering my 21 questions.
Pleasure.
And thanks for all the knowledge you shared with us. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of things to think about.
I'm sure they do, yeah, absolutely.
And well, stay safe and stay healthy. And I hope we all see each other very soon and do some magic together again.
Fingers crossed. I miss you. All right.